Alien Invasion, An Apocalypse. Written and performed by Tony Capobianco. Something was in the air. Widespread feelings of fear and foreboding manifested into irrational behavior and acts of violence. Paranoia, anger, and hysteria morphed into tangible social unrest. Wars, insurrections, violent protests, mass shootings, and serial killings had become an ordinary part of life. Society appeared to be unzipping all around the globe. Social order wasn't the only pillar of civilization in disarray. Nature itself had become disordered and inhospitable. Extremely violent and destructive natural disasters increased in both regularity and severity. Earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, severe thunderstorms, and tornadoes assaulted people throughout the world. Nature, it seemed, was angry and at war with us. The multi-pronged crisis fostered talk of the end of days. There were many theories on how the world would end. Some people believed that the end would come with the second coming of Jesus. Others thought that human extinction would be caused by climate change, nuclear war, a pandemic, or an asteroid impact. Very few people thought that the end would come by means of an alien assault, but that's exactly how it happened. Ultimately, it was a massive UFO invasion by an advanced extraterrestrial civilization that ushered in the apocalypse. After playing Frisbee, Lauren and I walked around the Horseshoe. The Horseshoe is a beautiful and historic part of our campus. During the American Civil War, its buildings were used as hospitals by both the Confederacy and by General Sherman. As such, General Sherman did not burn down the buildings on the Horseshoe. This South Carolina University was established in 1801. Gigantic old trees lush with leaves made the Horseshoe an idyllic garden within the state capital of Columbia. It's a place of immense beauty, and we fully took it all in. As Lauren and I looked up at the beautiful blue sky, we stopped in our tracks. Mouths agape, we saw a massive object in the sky. It was so immense that it cast a long shadow over the campus. Exponentially larger than any plane, an enormous craft hovered above us. Its triangular shape called to mind the head of a large poisonous snake. The immense enormity of the ship made it look like it could destroy an entire solar system. At the same time, this craft was more menacing than any spaceship from a movie. On the top of the strange craft stood the kind of bizarre appendage that was typically found upon the heads of some species of dinosaurs. The ship's appendage appeared as a three-pointed crown. The center point was taller than the points to its left and right. Lights from the ship's underside accentuated its massive size. Although a tremendous amount of energy must have been required to keep such a large and heavy object suspended in mid-air, there was no sound. The roar of engines was absent. The dead silence further amplified the eerie atmosphere. Feelings of wonder, shock, and fear swirled like a vortex within me. Next to us, a guy wearing a fraternity t-shirt said aloud, "I don't think that's a weather balloon." His fraternity brother replied, "No, bro. As a matter of fact, that isn't a weather balloon or a Chinese spy balloon. It's not Russian either." The crowd grew as bewildered students and professors stared at the supersized UFO hovering above campus. For several minutes, everyone was completely transfixed by the extraordinary event. In that brief period of time, no one looked at the screens of their smartphones. Perhaps it was only something like an alien visitation that could get people to stop staring at their phones for longer than a minute. However, it wasn't long until everyone frantically checked their phones for news updates. We all searched social media for answers, and compulsively refreshed our news feeds. The sight was surreal. The hundreds of us that were gathered there alternated between gawking up at the alien ship and looking down at our phones. I wouldn't have been surprised if someone had gotten whiplash from the frenzied process. Oohs and ahs echoed from the large crowd. Speaking into Lauren's ear, I said, "I think that we had better get out of here. If this crowd panics, it's going to get dangerous. Also, I don't have a good feeling about that thing in the sky." Lauren, pointing her lips to my ear, replied, "Steve, I think you're right. Let's go back to our dorm rooms and pack up some things and then head out of Columbia." Nodding my head in agreement, I said, "We'll meet back in the lobby of your dorm." We then quickly parted ways and walked from the Horseshoe to our dorm rooms. As rowdy as my dorm usually was, the rowdiness that day was unprecedented. I didn't waste any time. I quickly packed a few essentials along with some clothes and left a brief note informing my roommate of my plans. After that, I hurried over to meet up with Lauren. Since my dorm was closer to the Horseshoe, I was able to pack up and arrive to her place before she was ready. After several minutes of waiting, Lauren emerged from the nervous crowd of young women in the lobby. With an anxious look, she grabbed my arm and directed me outside of the building. Once outside, she said, "Okay, where do you want to go?" Looking around and surveying the scene, I replied, "Someplace outside of the city. Maybe we could go to Lake Murray or something." Lauren thought about it for several moments and responded, "Maybe. Or we could head over to my parents' house in upstate Greenville County. Our house is close to Caesar's Head State Park. That would put us in the escarpment of the Blue Ridge Mountains. In addition, we'd only be several miles away from North Carolina." Nodding my head, I replied, "Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. As you know, my parents are living in Monterey, California, because my dad's stationed around there. Driving out there under these circumstances isn't a good idea. Going to upstate South Carolina seems like the wise thing to do. That would take us away from any urban panic. We had better move right now." Lauren nodded in agreement, and we got into her black SUV and hit the road. From the brief glimpse of events reported on social media, we already knew that the large UFOs were hovering over New York City. As we drove, the radio informed us that similar UFO sightings were happening all around the world. While Lauren drove, I plugged my phone into the accessory outlet and watched alarming videos of the massive ships in the skies above the White House, London, Paris, the Vatican, Mecca, the Temple Mount, Berlin, Tokyo, Beijing, Seoul, Brasilia, and Mexico City. These ships seemed to be flying above every major city. The spontaneous emergence of these ships over the immense stretches of this planet didn't conjure the impression of peaceful intentions. Far from a peaceful first contact, this appeared to be a coordinated show of force meant to intimidate. It was done with military precision. The spectacular scene was foreboding. It looked like nothing on Earth could stand up to these flying cities. The gap between chimpanzees and humans seemed small compared to the astounding technological advancement of the vast alien fleet. The alien craft above Columbia, South Carolina was so huge that we could still see it when we were miles away. Then, as I looked out of the back window, I saw a laser beam, or beam of energy, shoot down from the ship. A moment later, a terrible, blinding flash of light appeared. Following the flash of light was a dark cloud that rushed out like a pyroclastic flow from a volcanic eruption. The loss of life must have been staggering and absolute. Our friends, our professors, and campus employees died in an instant. An overwhelming sadness hit me like a ton of bricks. As shocked as we were, any mental or emotional processing of the tragedy would have to wait. The pyroclastic flow, like a wall of destruction, was rapidly approaching us. The wall of death was gaining ground. "Floor this thing!" I yelled. Lauren pressed the pedal to the metal. Still, the dark cloud gained on us. My heart raced as adrenaline flowed through me like gasoline. After a brief but tense race, the cloud of death ceased expanding further. The beating of my heart slowed as I saw that the distance between us and the wall of debris was growing. Thankfully, we had survived the first great threat. In silence, we drove the rest of the way to Lauren's house. When we arrived at Lauren's house, we watched TV and learned that numerous cities had been totally destroyed. What we didn't understand was, why hadn't all of the alien spaceships destroyed the cities beneath them? It was clearly a coordinated attack, and yet most of the ships hadn't yet fired their weapons. So far as we could tell, the attacks only targeted capital cities. State capitals weren't the only cities that were reduced to ash. Washington, D.C. had been annihilated. The White House had been wiped from the face of the earth. We soon learned that the President of the United States hadn't been killed. They had moved him to a secure, undisclosed location prior to the attack. No doubt military advisors had picked up on the military-like formation of the fleet. Small as it was, the security of the U.S. President provided some hope and reassurance. Although we were grateful for the fact that New York City, Chicago, Detroit, Pittsburgh, and Los Angeles hadn't been leveled, we were unsure as to why they had been spared. The uncertainty and lack of having the answer only added to our anxiousness. On that dreadful first day of the alien invasion, we didn't know much. Questions swirled like tornadoes in our minds. Despair and doubt weighed us down. Beyond worrying about the future, we weren't even sure that we would have a future. The faith of many had been shaken to the core. Sitting on his couch, Lauren's father, Henry McKissick, said, "Thank the good Lord that you kids are okay. I don't know what those things are or where they came from, nor do I know what they want. Apart from the curious fact that they have only focused on destroying capital cities, there is something else that seems odd. Even though the attack was carried out with military precision, they chose not to attack military bases. I'd think that preemptively taking out your opponent's ability to wage war would be one of the first operational objectives." To the part about thanking the good Lord that we were okay, I bit my tongue. Knowing that Mr. and Mrs. McKissick were deeply religious, I knew that this wasn't the time to shake that particular tree. Silently, though, I thought that it was preposterous to thank God for our safety on a day that millions of people died horrific deaths. Where was he? Why would he, an all-powerful God, permit an alien force to butcher his children? Sitting on a love seat, I looked at Mr. McKissick and replied, "I am thankful that we survived, and I'm grateful for your hospitality. I'm not sure what to make of things. 3 things seem certain. These aliens aren't from our world. They've been here before, scouting the planet. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours." Mr. McKissick took a sip from his sweet tea and asked, "Why do you think that they've been here before?" "Well, they clearly knew where our capitals of governments were and then wiped them out. Even now, as we speak, they have spaceships hovering above religious sites that are essential to the dominant faiths," I answered. "Oh, right. Good point. What do they want? Why didn't they strike military bases?" If they want to be the cause of our extinction, why haven't they killed us all already? Mr. McKissick questioned. I don't know what they want, but it isn't peace. Maybe they need us for something. If they wanted to exterminate all of us, they could have easily done so already. With their technology, I wouldn't be surprised if they could send a planet-killing asteroid our way, or maybe even create a black hole to rip us into oblivion. As to why they haven't attacked our military, I can't be sure, but perhaps it's because our weapons are so primitive that they pose no threat to them or their objectives. That's a terrifying thought. Maybe they want that to be a terrifying thought. It could be a form of psychological warfare, I answered as my eyes remained glued to the news coverage on TV. Well, they've certainly sent a message, Lauren replied as she sat next to her dad. The conversation came to a pause when the news showed images of American fighter jets approaching one of the large alien crafts. The images were extraordinary. Reporters said that the United States Air Force had scrambled its most advanced aircraft to neutralize the threat. F-22 Raptors, F-35 Lightnings, and F-16s fired a barrage of missiles at the alien ship. The missiles detonated without having any discernible impact. The fighter jets had fired bullets followed by unleashing another wave of missiles. Once again, the attack was unsuccessful. The alien ship didn't retaliate until the American fighter jets had spent all of their munitions. Then, a brilliant wave of red light emanated from the alien ship. When the red wave of energy hit the fighter jets, instant destruction commenced. Each fighter jet disintegrated to ash. The sight of ashes falling to the ground was horrific. Similar scenes played out over the skies of China and Russia. Humanity's most advanced aircraft were powerless against the alien spacecrafts. Cruise missiles, hypersonic missiles, and drones all failed to cause any perceivable damage. It was as if we had thrown spears at a tank. War had come to Earth, and Earth wasn't prepared. Victory seemed impossible, and survival seemed unlikely. Panic-fueled crowds rioted and plundered stores. People quickly wiped out store shelves. After the stores had been gutted, the mob turned its eyes on individual homes and apartments. Chaos erupted in all of the cities that had not yet been destroyed. All hell is breaking loose out there. I'm glad we're out here in the seclusion of the mountains. Only remote locations are going to be spared from the wave of roaming mobs, I said as I watched the news. We have lots of guns and ammo, too. If anyone comes here, they'll find that we are armed to the teeth, said Lauren as if she was trying to comfort herself. I think we're safe here at the moment. After watching all of the news coverage, something stands out to me. The fact that there is news coverage. Why is the internet still accessible? Why is the power still on? You'd think that power and communications would have been one of the first things that the alien attackers would have crippled. It's like they want us to be watching events unfold. I think they wanted us to see the annihilation of our capitals. They wanted us to watch as our military launched an assault that was an abject failure. The aliens want us to know that they are in control and that we pose no threat to them or to their plans. I'd bet that they want us to see whatever it is that they do next, I explained as I nervously rubbed my hands. Everyone sat speechless after I had finished talking. Our spirits were low. Sadness and despair permeated the room. Each of us came to a disturbing realization. The world as we knew it was over. There wasn't anything that we could do about it either. If we had a future, it was sure to be a dystopian nightmare. We went to bed that evening not knowing if we'd wake up, or how much of civilization would remain if we did survive to the next day. As it turned out, we did survive the night to see the next day. The major cities remained unharmed. The next big event came that second day. The ships that were hovering over various holy sites unleashed a devastating attack. The ships dropped small, round, metallic balls down upon St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. A blinding explosion followed. The center of the Catholic Church, which stood for centuries, had been obliterated in an instant. The same horrendous scene played out at churches, mosques, synagogues, temples, and shrines around the world. Hindu, Buddhist, Jewish, Muslim, Catholic, or Protestant, it didn't matter. The holy places and spaces of all world religions were targeted and annihilated. Other chilling videos had emerged. The major cities of the world had been boxed in by mega-walls. New York City, Los Angeles, Shanghai, Wuhan, Birmingham, Hamburg, and other famous cities were imprisoned. Footage revealed walls that seemed to build themselves. Within a few minutes, the construction had been completed. The people inside were trapped. The next phase of horror began shortly after the self-constructing walls had been erected. Smaller alien crafts transported hordes of terrifying aliens into cities around the world. The aliens were grayish-black in color. A strange crown-like appendage extended up from the back of their large heads. The appendage on their heads seemed to have been the inspiration for the appendage on the top of the massive mothership that I had seen on campus. Their eyes seemed to glow green. They walked upright. Like us, they had 2 arms and 2 legs. Unlike us, they possessed lengthy tails and razor-sharp claws. Overall, the appearance of these creatures was ghastly. These fierce aliens reminded me of a mashup of a dinosaur, spider, octopus, and demon. The incredible speed, agility, and strength possessed by these creatures exponentially added to the fear instilled by their appearance. The alien creatures pounced on people and started to eat them alive. The scenes were grotesque. After the alien soldiers' appetites had been satiated, they began rounding people up like cattle. It had become clear. We were their livestock now, and they were the farmers. Our place in the food chain dropped. The Earth had a new apex predator. All we could do was try to adapt and survive. Police officers shot at the alien creatures and even successfully killed a few. However, there were too many of them. Their numbers appeared equal to a plague of locusts. The New York Police Department was soon overwhelmed and ripped to shreds. Similar scenes played out in cities around the world. When each country sent military helicopters to assist the people trapped in a city, the results were always the same. Time after time, the alien ships would fire a red energy wave and reduce them to ashes. The horrendous events were replicated in city after city. The number of aliens were as grains of sand on the beach. The alien ships seemed to rival the number of stars in the sky. The alien attacks on the first day were themselves a message. Likewise, the types of attacks on day 2 were also a message. On day 1, the destruction of our capitals told us that the aliens were in control. They could destroy us at will. The message from day 2's attacks were that our religions were powerless and could not save us. Day 2 also taught us that our weapons were useless against the alien ships, and we were no longer the apex predators on our planet. In fact, Day 2 made clear that this was no longer our planet. It was theirs, and everything on it belonged to them. Day 3 of the invasion revealed a third soul-crushing message. On the third day, aliens had rebuilt cities on the remains of the capitals that they had destroyed on the first day. The speed in which they raised the cities was incomprehensible to us. The same technology that had built the prison walls around our major cities was used to build these new megacities. These massive city structures were going to be long-term homes for the aliens. They had smashed our cities like anthills and replaced them with larger, more sophisticated cities of their own. The message here was clear. This alien invasion wasn't a temporary raid for food and plunder. These new overlords were here to stay. Not only were we on their menu, but they were going to farm us indefinitely. Our cities had become gigantic cattle pens. What came on the following days was unexpected. The aliens had transmitted a message that played across our TVs, tablets, and smartphones. The alien commander said, "People of Earth, I am Emperor Kroel, ruler and god of the Milky Way galaxy. Your planet and everything on it belongs to me. You belong to me. Many of you shall be food for the gods. That is a great honor. Weak as you are, you can become divine by being ingested by divine beings. Your pathetic armies are no more threatening to us than dogs are to you. Since battle amuses us, we will afford you the opportunity to engage some of my warriors in combat. You stand no chance against our advanced weapons. Therefore, some of your warriors will have the opportunity to fight my warriors on a level playing field. Some battles will be fought using guns, others with swords, and others will be hand to hand. If any of your warriors prove victorious, their lives will be spared. The Great Galactic Gladiatorial Games will begin in 6 days. The games will be televised. Always remember that your gods are no more. Only the great Kroel remains. Your god has spoken." Before the Galactic Gladiatorial Games began, the Chinese and Russian militaries amassed and pressed toward the alien supercity that loomed where Beijing once stood. They launched hypersonic missiles at the alien megacity, but each missile was destroyed before they reached the intended target. Red waves of energy surrounded and protected the alien cities from any and all attacks. As the allied Russian and Chinese armies approached, an alien craft dropped a bomb that detonated and seemed to form a miniature black hole. The event horizon swallowed the combined armies in moments. Then, just as suddenly as the black hole manifested into existence, it disappeared out of existence. The astounding display of power was transmitted for all the world to see. All hope had been lost. Generals from around the world knew that there was no way to fight that kind of power. The alien technology was so much more advanced than ours that it looked like magic. Even our popular science fiction movies had failed to envision the kind of enemy that we were facing. The Galactic Gladiatorial Games were streamed to our screens. They were extremely brutal. In the arena, a member of Delta Force shot an alien to pieces. One United States Army Ranger ripped out the eyes of an alien combatant and then broke its neck. We applauded the gruesome victory because we lived vicariously through that man. True to his word, Emperor Kroel did spare the lives of the brave human victors. Not many humans prevailed in the arena, but the ones that did were placed in a zoo. In cages, they were treated like we treated lions and tigers. It's been several weeks since the alien apocalypse began. To this point, the forces of Crowell have tended to the cattle farms that were once our great cities. They haven't yet ventured into the countryside to round up the rest of us. However, there's no reason to believe that we will be safe here for long. These so-called gods have no respect for human life. I imagine that they must be busy in their cities, or that they are feasting in celebration of their conquest. Whenever they do decide to turn their green glowing eyes toward us, we'll be in trouble. After much discussion, we've decided to start building a hidden underground bunker in an undisclosed location deep in the woods. Last I heard, my parents were alive. Lauren and her parents have given me something to fight for. Had I been on my own, I'm not sure that I would have the will to live. As survivors in a post-apocalyptic world, life is grim. Yet, we have each other, and that's why we go on. Knowing that others depend on you is a powerful motivation. The end of the world hasn't yet arrived, but the end of human civilization has. Any hope of victory over these monstrous aliens died within the first 3 days of the invasion. Only 2 hopes burn within me now. One hope is the hope for survival. The other hope is that I make the lives of our new tyrannical masters as difficult as possible. While I don't know what the future will bring, I do know that we can only face it one day at a time. The alien invasion must lead to an insurrection. We must make their occupation as painful as possible for them. Let's show them what the human spirit is and how resilient we are. Wherever you are, fight on. Never give up. Thanks for stopping by the Haunted Half Moon Inn. I hope that you have enjoyed your stay. Before you go, please put a wooden stake through the like button and leave a comment for the spirits to read. If you did enjoy your time with us, subscribe to this undead channel. Doing those little things really helps me to reach more souls. The world is sick and hurting. It needs more horror. Help me to heal the world through horror. Together, we can haunt this world one home at a time. And always remember, just because you don't see them doesn't mean that they aren't there.